Good afternoon to you. It is 3:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We're making sense of the news ahead of that big debate this evening. Coming up, Paul Sperry joins us from Real Clear Investigations. We'll talk about the moderators in this debate and their history of carrying deep state lies to the public. Michael McCulloch will be here at 4 o'clock. He's an attorney representing a winner before the United States Supreme Court today. A big decision, a good decision, saying that the government has too much power and we need to wrest it back. Caroline Sunshine joins us at 4:30. She is the Trump campaign's deputy communications director. We have a lot to ask her about as we head into this debate this evening. And Dan Schneider joins us from the Media Research Center and Free Speech America as the big tech companies are up to no good again. A little bit of election rigging? You betcha. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Joe Biden waddling up the short stairs today aboard Air Force One en route to Atlanta, Georgia, just arriving moments ago. He's going to step off that plane at some point and make his way over to CNN studio where they're going to be conducting the CNN debate. You can hear it tonight right here on WMAL beginning at 9 p.m. at the conclusion of the great one, Mark Levin's radio program. And you'll hear Donald Trump square off with three people at the same time. It's going to be great as he faces off against not just Joe Biden, but Jake Tapper as well as Dana Bash on CNN. And he's well equipped for it. He is. And I'd love to get your previews tonight. What do you think is going to happen this evening? 888-630-9625. I'd love to get your input on this. I think that Trump does have the most to lose tonight. He does. President Trump has the most to lose tonight. And that's only for one reason. It's because he's so far ahead. If you're that far ahead, you're the one with the most to lose. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has the most to gain tonight because, yes, exactly, because he's so far behind. Americans are furious about the state of our country under Joe Biden, and rightfully so. Inflation is up since he took office at 19.3%. Gas prices alone are up 46%. The White House on all of its social media accounts this week saying gas prices are down. Yeah, from the record highs that Biden set. They're still way up, 46%. Rent is up 30%. That is, housing costs have skyrocketed under Biden, and that's what's making things so difficult for so many Americans. Mortgage rates, for instance, do you know how much they're up? 148%. Mortgage rates, 148% higher right now than when Joe Biden took office. According to a recent New York Times poll, 51% of voters say that Trump is better equipped to handle the issues that are most important to them. Just 37% of people say the same thing about Joe Biden. And they don't know what they're talking about. 28% of voters say the economy, inflation, and the cost of living, those are the most important issues. 16% of them say immigration is the most important issue, that is the state of our border. And 8% say abortion is the most important issue, just 8%. But that number even should be divided up among those people who want to protect life and those people who want to dispense with it. If Donald Trump uses his time well this evening, he will dominate Joe Biden and the moderators easily on each of these issues. And that's because he was president before. At the same point in time in office for President Trump, inflation had only gone up by 5% over the course of that first term. Gas prices actually went down 6.4% by this time. Rent, it went up, but only half as much as under Biden. Mortgage rates dropped under Donald Trump 25.2%. As for abortion, Trump's position is the one that is shared by the majority of Americans. Abortion should have limits, and those limits should be set by the voters. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's position is the most extreme in American history. It's shared only by countries like North Korea that support the massacre of children all the way up until the moment of birth for any reason, regardless of the health of the child or the mother. on the border, there's really no question. Trump's policies definitely made us way more secure. So right now, under Joe Biden, tens of millions of foreign nationals are scamming their way into our country and then disappearing. Helped along, of course, by Joe Biden at taxpayer expense with a constellation of NGOs that are taking your money and trafficking human beings in. That's actually happening. Some of these illegals are even going on to attack our citizens, devastating, helpless American families. So tonight, one of the things I will be looking for is whether they say the name of a young girl who was just murdered due to Joe Biden's horrifying border policies. In March and May of this year alone, 2 illegals from Venezuela entered our country. The Biden administration briefly took them into custody. They put ankle monitors on both men, and then they released them. Now those men stand accused of kidnapping, hog-tying, and raping a 12-year-old girl by the name of Jocelyn Nungaray over the course of 2 hours under a bridge before murdering her and dumping her body in a bayou. It's horrific. And authorities say one of her murderers was still wearing an ankle monitor during the assault. So just as the country mourned the death of Laken Riley and so many others, and in the case of Laken Riley, and forced Biden to say her name, a decent country, again, tonight, would force him to reckon with the death of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray. That would be the decent thing to do. But again, I'm not holding my breath for decency tonight. Here's what I know, and here's what Trump knows. Trump is going into the liar's den this evening. That's what's happening here. When he walks in, it is 1 versus 3. CNN has been conducting fact checks of both Joe Biden and Donald Trump for some time now. But the Joe Biden fact checks, they're virtually non-existent. They barely ever appear. CNN has not conducted a single fact check of President Biden that they list on their website. They have a fact check section since announcing that they were hosting the first presidential debate on May 15th, according to a Daily Caller analysis today. The last Biden fact check that CNN ever ran was May 14th, the day before they got this debate, when Biden falsely claimed that inflation was at 9% when he took office. Since then, CNN has fact-checked former President Donald Trump 11 times. What do you think is going to happen tonight? What is that going to look like? Now, CNN, quite ridiculously, they put out a video overnight, a corny demonstration of how the microphones are going to be shut off at times, and what the candidates will see, and there'll be these green lights, and if the green lights are off, the microphone is off, and you won't be able to hear. Take a listen to some of this.
Welcome to the set of the CNN presidential debate. We want to give our viewers a sense of the rules of the debate so that when they watch it, they can understand how President Biden and President Trump will be engaging with each other. Tomorrow night, just after 9 p.m. Eastern, President Biden will enter from the right side of your screen. President Trump will enter from the left side of your screen.
Oh, my gosh.
The podiums are 8 feet apart. Directly across from them, the moderators. CNN's Jake Tapper.
The room has been set to exactly 72 degrees. We've ensured that we have a generator on standby just in case the power goes out. Who cares? Honestly, who cares? But they get to this point where they're demonstrating how the microphones operate here. He's like, I brought in my colleague now.
If we go behind the podiums, you can see 2 green lights. When they're on, they signal to the candidate his microphone is on. When the green lights are off, they signal to the candidate his microphone is off. Now I want to give you a sense of what it will look like for viewers at home if a candidate whose microphone is off interrupts a candidate whose microphone is on. So I'm standing at one podium, and I'll ask Phil to come in and take the other podium. And so let's say I'm answering a question. My light is green, and I'm speaking. Phil's microphone is off, and his green lights are not illuminated. He's going to interrupt me as I'm speaking, and this is what it will sound like. My volume remains constant, while Phil's interruption can be difficult to understand.
Let's try the opposite. My microphone is now on. Victor's microphone is off, and he's going to interrupt me. My volume...
I love how they're acting as if they're speaking to children.
...remains constant, while Victor's interruption can be difficult to understand. Now, CNN's production team has shared this demonstration with the campaigns earlier today, and we're...
Now, I want you to notice something. Although it is true, it's a little more difficult to hear the other man as he's speaking. You can still tell that the other guy is trying to say something, because the audio is bleeding over into the active microphone. So when you're listening to this, you will be able to hear, to some extent, muffled interruptions. So if President Trump wants to say, that's horse hockey, you're going to be able to hear him expressing his discontent. So first of all, Trump should definitely use that to his advantage. Absolutely. Now, how likely is it that Trump will interrupt Joe Biden this evening? And by the way, Biden has stepped off of Air Force One once again on the short steps. He's talking to greeters now, and he looks as old as he's ever looked. He really does. He's sniffing a woman, actually, as I'm speaking, and now he's moving to the next one. Let's see if he sniffs her. Pausing for the sniff. He's staring blankly at her and moving very slowly. So no sniffing for the next woman just yet. But that's what's happening as we speak. So will Trump interrupt him? Well, he spoke to Byron York of the Washington Examiner earlier this week, and Byron writes this. He says, in a recent conversation in Mar-a-Lago, I said to Trump, a lot of people thought in the first debate with Biden back in 2020 that you were somewhat overamped, that you just went after him too much, that I interrupted him, said Trump. Yeah, I think. Byron asks, do you agree with that? Trump says, Then after a short pause, he defended the interruptions before conceding that, yes, there were too many. Here's Trump. He said, quote, he lies so much. He's going on. Everything he says is a lie. So I would call him, because calling him out 2 minutes later is very tough because, it's a lie. It's a lie. Everything is a lie. I've never seen anything like it. So when I would interrupt, it looked like, I agree, though. The second debate, I handled it much differently and got very good marks. So if that's any indication of Trump's attitude for this evening, he's going to let Biden speak to some length. But his goal this evening, as it should be, is to call out the lies and to directly place blame for the horrific state of the country squarely on Joe Biden's failing shoulders. All right, we'll go to the phones now. 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Line 4 is where we find Sean in Columbia, Maryland. Sean, kick us off today on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, thanks a lot. You always put on a good show. The Biden team came out and made some references earlier in the week that they were going to try to get Biden to get underneath Trump's skin. Mm-hmm. He's incapable of that. I think that was just a cryptic message to these two moderators to go get him. Get him and unravel him. Because when you said 3-on-1, I wish I could get Biden that. It's going to be a contested interview 2-on-1. And I'll be honest, we're not even going to know if they're shutting off Biden's mic.
Here's something.
Because he's going to be searching to answer any questions, and we're like, okay, what did it do? Shut off his mic?
So here's the thing. Here's something. You're making me think of something else that I wanted to bring up, Sean, which is, the candidates themselves have some restrictions placed on them. They're not allowed to bring props. They're not allowed to have pre-written notes. They'll have a blank piece of paper and they can jot things down during the course of the debate. They're also not allowed to have members of their campaign come up and talk to them during tonight's proceedings. But I've noticed that I haven't heard about any such restrictions for the moderators. In other words, will CNN be bringing video footage to play during this evening's debate? To what extent will it look like, say, the January 6th committee's lying interpretation of the events of American history? Will CNN be using video footage as a way to support the way that they're building otherwise and these corrupt questions? I am curious about that, and that may be what you're talking about, Sean, which is that these guys will try and get under Trump's skin in that way tonight.
Absolutely. I think that's the only hope that they have right now because, I watched the first debate 4 years ago, and Biden wasn't that bad. He's deteriorated so bad that the only reason that he gets on the nerve of is people trying to understand what he's saying. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have much faith in this. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate the call. Let me go to Dave now in Alexandria, line 6. Dave, good afternoon. Your expectations for tonight?
Well, I know what my expectations are, but here's what I do not want to hear from Donald Trump. I don't want to hear his cute nicknames. I don't want to hear Crooked Hillary. I don't want to hear Lion Biden. I don't want to hear Posturepedic Polka Harris. Well, that one's mine. But anyway, President, he is right on all the issues. Mm-hmm. All he needs to do is make his case and refer to them respectfully as, under this person, this is what would have happened. This is what they did. He just needs to go out and make his case, look presidential, sound presidential. I think you're probably aware that in the 60 debate between Nixon and Kennedy, mm-hmm. people who watched the debate on TV
had a very different
gave it
experience.
to Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
because he looked presidential. He was calm. Nixon was sweating. He was, fidgety. People who listened to it on the radio said Nixon won the debate. So I just want Trump to be presidential in every aspect.
Well, I got to say that the television side of things is Trump's specialty. He definitely knows how to handle that. He's been a part of that for a long time, and so I think for television viewers tonight, they may very well walk away with the same impression. We'll see, though. You're right, though. There is audio-only versions of this, just like that Nixon-Kennedy debate. You can listen to it right here on WMAL and make your assessment, but I think I know where a lot of our audience is going to be already. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that.
On to the president. He's been at Camp David for more than a week. Can you tell us anything about his mindset going into tonight, his mood? Have you seen him since we've been airborne?
Yeah. So a couple of things, and I'm going to be really mindful, follow the law, Hatch Act, all of the things.
We should whisper. He's sleeping right now.
And I'll say this. Look, the president is president wherever he is.
What?
Obviously, there was a Dobbs decision. You heard from the president then. You heard from the vice president. You heard us lay out. I just stated this at the top about what we have seen at the border and the 40% drop, which I think is also important. So he's able to do the job wherever he is. There's an infrastructure to do just that. And I'll say this, whenever there's an opportunity for the president to speak directly to American public, in this instance, it'll be millions of Americans watching, he takes that opportunity very seriously.
One of the many upsides to a Biden loss is that we will get rid of her as the White House press secretary. She is just awful. And she doesn't stand alone. There's a couple of them. Joe Biden himself, Kamala Harris herself, Karine Jean-Pierre, they all communicate like this, in this nonsensical, infuriating way. I've been talking about the things I've been saying, and we've been clear. I said it up top. I just want to repeat the things I said. Oh, thank you. It's as clear as mud. Coming up, Paul Sperry joins us. We talked to him about the deep state's efforts to rig our elections and the support they've been getting from CNN's moderators. Good afternoon. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Michael McCulloch will be with us at 4 o'clock. He's an attorney representing George Jarksy, who just won a big case today before the United States Supreme Court, and it takes away some of that power the federal government keeps assuming unto itself. Caroline Sunshine is with the Trump campaign. She joins us at 4:30 ahead of tonight's CNN debate, heard live on WMAL at 9 p.m. And then at 5:30, Dan Schneider from the Media Research Center and Free Speech America is here to talk about big tech's latest efforts to interfere yet again in the presidential election. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Tonight's moderators will be one Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. And who are they? What is their history? And why does it consist entirely of efforts to destroy Donald Trump and uphold the establishment in the deep state? For more on this, let's bring in Paul Sperry, a senior reporter for Real Clear Investigations, who, as always, has been digging into this topic and so much more. Paul, it's so great to have you with us, sir. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Vince.
It does seem important that we know who exactly is going to be asking the questions tonight. And I saw you had a big piece yesterday on Jake Tapper specifically and his relationship with another CNN employee by the name of James Clapper. What can you tell us about these two men and why Jake Tapper is a suspicious figure to be doing this gig this evening?
Yeah, well, James Clapper actually was Obama's chief of intelligence, and but Tapper and Clapper rhymes.
Yeah.
They actually had a relationship where Tapper was receiving leaks from Clapper while he was still Obama's intelligence czar. This was back in January 2017, and Trump was just coming in, hadn't yet taken the oath of office, and Jake Tapper secretly worked with Clapper on the fake dossier story. Remember the Steele dossier?
Yep.
Hillary funded. This was designed to trip up President-elect Trump, before inauguration.
And I remember at the time, and since then we've learned, I think it was James Comey who said that CNN needed a news hook in order to start sharing this salacious information in public.
Oh, yeah.
And the hook
Oh, yeah.
ended up being the briefing that they gave Trump about the salacious information.
That was the leak, that they were taking it seriously, this ridiculous dossier. That it had such wild, unsubstantiated allegations that no one would touch it in the White House press corps. But as soon as CNN, Clapper leaked it to Tapper about the dossier being briefed and that they were taking it seriously, then they went wild with it, the media. And that's what gave them as you say, the news hook to go ahead with it. Hey, if the entire intelligence community is taking it seriously, we can take it seriously. And even though they didn't believe it at the time, they went crazy and they tarnished Trump as some type of Russian conspirator, and they were off to the races. And then Dana Bash is the co-moderator tonight at CNN. She worked with Clapper, or her ex-husband worked with Clapper, and the Biden campaign. This was in October 2020, on the fake intelligence so-called intelligence about the Hunter Biden laptop being Russian disinformation. That was in 2020.
Right.
And his name is Jeremy Bash, her ex, and he was under CIA contract, as it turns out, at the time that he worked with Clapper on that bogus intelligence letter to try and discredit the laptop story. And by the way, he still has green badge access to top secret classified information at Langley at the CIA headquarters, and it doesn't expire until the end of August. So don't be surprised if they're cooking up another influence op against Trump for tonight or in the next debate.
And Jeremy Bash has been, perhaps still is, a national security analyst for NBC and MSNBC, correct?
He's all over the Biden-friendly networks. He's quite the operative.
Yeah, and speaking of NBC contributors, that includes John Brennan, former CIA director, who's lied about spying on the United States Senate and so much more. So these guys keep getting rewarded with these jobs at these networks after arranging leaks to them in order to slander their political opponents here in the United States.
Yeah, it's outrageous. You're talking about with these two. So let me backtrack a little bit on 2016. A lot of people don't know what happened. In October 7th, 2016, Clapper met with Obama in the White House, and they hatched a plot to manufacture fake intelligence about Russia ahead of this was just 2 days ahead of the national debate between Hillary and Trump. And right on cue, Hillary used it to attack Trump and tarnish him as some type of Putin stooge or even a Kremlin agent. And that was the first debate. And then, of course, Clapper also manufactured this intel in 2020 about the laptop. In fact, he was the guy who he helped draft the letter, and he even wrote the key language, the key phrase about how it was, quote, it has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. He was referring to the New York Post story, breaking the story about the emails from the laptop, the abandoned laptop, and showing an influence peddling with Burisma, and Joe Biden being involved in that. And this was a much needed lifeline for Biden because this story was hot, and it was coming just weeks before the election, and they needed to kill it. So they actually conspired, Clapper and his buddies, many of them still under contract for the CIA, conspired with the Biden campaign to manufacture this fake intel that the Russians were behind all this. And then, the media picked up on this, Russian disinformation. They hyped it, and but it was an influence operation by Clapper and the CIA. They were the ones who were interfering in the election, not the Russians.
Right.
Which is just outrageous.
So,
we're talking about potential violations of the Hatch Act, violations of FEC laws,
Yep.
violations of the Church Commission, which prohibits the CIA and other intel agents from getting involved in domestic affairs. Absolutely outrageous.
So I just want to make sure to include a couple of the characters who were involved in the Hunter Biden laptop letter that was sent out, the Russian disinformation letter. Since then, we've learned a bunch, a lot of it by way of your reporting, Paul Sperry. So, for instance, the former CIA acting director Michael Morell testified before Congress about all of this and said that the letter was actually put together at the behest of Antony Blinken, who is now the Secretary of State and then was a member of the Biden campaign, who coordinated all of this. We've also learned since then that there were at least one active CIA official who was helping to get signatures for this letter, meaning the taxpayers were paying somebody who was trying to wrangle signatures for this fake letter. And then in this past week, we've also learned that a number of the signatories were actually active CIA contractors at the same time. So that leads me to this point, Paul Sperry. We've been saying 51 former intelligence officials a lot. It turns out former is incorrect. These were 51 intelligence officials, some of whom were very much active.
Yeah, there's a lot more to that story as we're finding out. You know, in hindsight, this was a much bigger scandal, and also the October 7th, 2016 operation they had going, and Clapper was involved in that. Obama was directly involved in that. He gave the blessing to that op. So Mike Morell, who's buddies with Bash and Clapper. He was working directly with Blinken in the campaign, and Blinken was a top official in the Biden campaign in October 2020. And one email, he actually says to another former CIA guy, or actually, yeah, the guy he was talking to actually wasn't. He actually was not under contract with CIA, but Morell was at the time under contract with CIA. And he says, "This will thrill the Biden campaign. The Biden campaign will be thrilled with what we're doing, with the letter that they crafted." And so the fix was in. They were all in on it, and there is evidence. And they need to get to the bottom of this part. There was evidence that some officials actually still employed in the CIA, working out of Langley, were helping recruit some of these signatories.
Right.
Now that if they can drill down on that more, the congressional investigators.
Yes.
Then you're talking about criminal activity, and potential criminal activity.
Yep.
And also, your listeners should understand that the CIA is holding out. They're withholding the names. All of the names of the 51 who are among the 51 who were under contract, who are paid CIA contractors at the time they signed that phony letter discrediting the story. There are more, and they will not tell the oversight committees how many more.
Because the CIA doesn't see itself as having any transparency obligation to the American people.
Yeah, but now hopefully the American people will see that, normally the CIA would get involved in foreign elections if need be, in a lot of different ways, as you know, but no one's ever understood that the CIA would get involved in certainly not in a domestic election, and they did 2016 and 2020 and possibly 2024. This is absolutely outrageous. It should outrage every taxpayer, every American that's what they've been doing. And of course, they also were involved in that whole dossier BS,
right?
And spying on Trump.
I'm looking at an email here that was secured. James Lynch over at National Review sharing this, but just a screen grab. It's between two CIA employees at the time, October 20th, 2020. One says to the other, "I also love that at least a few of the random signatures belong to individuals currently working here on contracts." The other responds, "This frustrates me. I don't think it is helpful to the agency in the long run. Sigh."
Yeah.
So here you have CIA employees admitting, these are all active CIA guys. This is bad for us.
Yeah, they know this is going to come back to bite them. These are career guys. These are guys who care. And but most of the guys who signed the 51, some were probably persuaded and they regret it, but the people who were leading it were very political. Mike Morell is extremely political. He was with the Hillary group. After he retired from the CIA, he went over to Beacon Global Strategies. Now that was founded by a guy named Philippe Reines.
Right.
He is one of Hillary's top henchmen, Hillary Clinton. And so then Jeremy Bash went over there. Morell is over there. Others who signed that thing are involved. It's like a shadow CIA shop they had going over there. And the whole thing was designed to influence elections and try and get Hillary hired to the White House, Biden hired to the White House, hurt Trump, sabotage Trump. That's what they're doing. And no one's investigating this. I mean, the Washington Post, this is bigger than Watergate. You talk about the abuses that happened under Watergate. My gosh. It was like a Boy Scout jamboree compared to what's going on with this. And the Washington Post, because they hate Trump so bad, they're willing to look the other way on unbelievable abuse of the awesome power of the intelligence community.
Yep. Well, not only are they looking the other way, they're looking for scoops from that intelligence community. They're maintaining a close relationship with them. So, and then the other piece here, I think that matters is what happens next. You heard from Chuck Schumer in the past. He told Rachel Maddow almost gleefully that you don't want to mess with the intel community. They have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. An example of that, other than President Trump, is certainly General Mike Flynn, who comes in to office in the early days of the Trump administration with the intention of reforming the intelligence community, certainly not something they wanted. And so the hit was out very early for him. How dangerous does this American intel community become to us this election, the more it seems like Donald Trump is going to win?
Yeah, it could. Hopefully, some of this stuff coming to light, belatedly, unfortunately, is going to give them pause. But they're so desperate. I mean, there's no telling what they're capable of doing after all this. I mean, it's insane. It really is. So, I mean, they really will stop at nothing to try and stop Trump. He is such a threat to the globalist agenda that they all share, and they have to stop him. And these are influence operations. The whole thing about the Russians being the real election interference was done by our own intelligence community, as it turns out.
Yeah, and you keep telling us that with your excellent reporting. Paul Sperry over at Real Clear Investigations. So great to have you with us. I genuinely appreciate you, and I'm grateful for your time today, sir. As we speak, so many things happening. Joe Biden is in Georgia, meandering his way towards the scene of the debate, that CNN studio, which, by the way, they're not letting any reporters in the room at all. The press corps begging CNN on bended knee, please let us in, just in case the unexpected happens. What do you mean the unexpected? What might happen? They're begging, CNN not letting them in. This is our event, they say. It's unusual. Normally, with the President of the United States in particular, you would have what we call a poll reporter in the room to document the things that are happening, especially at an event like this. And especially if he's going to be off microphone. If the microphone's going to be shut off, if he's going to be doing anything off mic, you might have a reporter write it down. It's important literally for history's sake. CNN blocking that from happening today. So in addition to Biden being there, Donald Trump, President Trump, has just taken off from Florida. He's headed to Georgia, the short flight from Palm Beach. And meanwhile, the funeral of Jocelyn Nungaray is right now happening in a very hot Houston, Texas. They say the heat is as high as about 110 degrees or something right now. It's pretty wild. People sitting out there with paper fans in their grief as her body was just brought up in a hearse, a horse and carriage, a small casket removed, being brought to its final resting site. Will her name be heard tonight at that debate? It should be. It very much should be. Michael McCulloch's going to join us next. He's an attorney who represents a gentleman named George Jarksy, who just won a big case today before the Supreme Court that means the government has a little bit less power today and you have a little bit more. That's a big deal. We'll talk to the attorney about that in a moment.